Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We are so excited to tell you about our project, and especially about the lessons it holds for all of us working in public administrations across the world. But before we do that, we'll introduce ourselves, so you know who you're listening to. My name is Nina Timmers. I'm a strategic designer working on innovation projects in youth detention centers. And with me here today is Lotte de Haan.
Yeah, so my name is Lotte de Haan and I collaborate as a social designer with Nina in order to create a new service for young people in prison. I work for the social design agency Afdeling Buitengewone Zaken.
So today there are three things that we wanted to talk to you about. First of all, why is co-creating public services with citizens so important? And second, what does it look like in practice? Third, what can you do to involve people more often and more effectively? So let's start with the big question. Why is co-creation so important, especially in our field of work? Well, it's because we firmly believe that as public servants, it's our responsibility to make sure that the people who are affected by changes that we propose have a say in what those changes look like, even if it's difficult, or maybe especially when it's difficult, because it creates better outcomes for everyone. I hear you wonder, what might that look like in practice? Well, luckily, we're here to tell you. We're here to tell you about our most exciting project so far, where we're co-creating an educational program with and for young people in detention centers all across the Netherlands. But before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit more about the context of this project. In the Netherlands, we have on average 450 young people in detention on any given day. Most of them are between 14 and 21 years old. On average, young people spend 92 days inside, but it's important to understand that most of them leave sooner. Only 19% of them stay inside for longer than 3 months, sometimes up to 6 years. For every young person, we have 2.6 FTE staff. We need so many people per young person because we organize an intensive program during the day with education, training, therapy, and recreation, all aimed at resocialization. In the evening, however, these young people are locked up in their rooms with not enough opportunities to spend their time in meaningful ways. Therefore, the organization wants to understand what young people need to make the time spent in their room more meaningful. And this is quite a challenge because the educational offer that we're developing needs to tick a lot of boxes. It needs to be safe, it needs to be functional, it needs to be feasible, and most importantly, it needs to be motivating. Because we know that self-motivation is one of the hardest things for a young person in detention when they are in their room.
So what's the approach? In this project, we use co-creation, a way of working together in which all participants have an equal influence on the content, the result, and the process. In this case, the participants are youngsters, professionals, and the designers. Creation points to the focus of making in this process. In the next slides, I will highlight 4 principles that have led us to a successful co-creative process. Firstly, it's incredibly important to create a plain level playing field, where everybody feels welcome and able to give input. So we brought a recognizable context, the actual room as a carpet on the floor as you see in the photo. We made clear that we know little about this context and that the youngsters are the much needed experts. Secondly, we listened to what is important, not only what we wanted to know, even if the input was not related to the initial question. By being open and humble, you will learn unexpected things that later on can be crucial to the final design. Here we kept in mind the youngsters do not care about our goal. They only care about how to make their situation better. Third, make it tangible. Don't just talk, but bring the actual things you talk about, such as this sports-themed prototype you can see in the picture. Often, it's difficult for people to imagine and have an opinion about a future that is not there. You can enable people forming this opinion when you show the possibilities. 4, test immediately. When an idea is mentioned, we test it right away. For example, when the idea came up, maybe we want to make posters, we instantly did it to see if and how it would work. This increases the trust between you and the people you work with, because you immediately give back instead of only taking information. So what is the impact of this process for young people and the organization? For the youngsters, the impact is that they're actually being heard and valued in the changes which are implemented and affect them. Secondly, as a result, we are developing several educational tracks based on the outcomes of the co-creation sessions with themes based on young people's interests, designed in a way that motivates them to use it.
For our organization, the impact is threefold. Through this approach, we've gotten better at organizing meaningful participation. Initially, there was some skepticism based on earlier attempts to ask young people for their ideas, but we've shown that there are ways in which we can have deep and productive conversations. These conversations help us deliver better services, which in turn leads to better outcomes. In our case, for young people, for the organization, and for the public. So, what can you do? Here are 3 takeaways. First of all, meet people where they are, and we don't just mean physically. We also mean use their language and make sure that people can identify with your story and questions. Second, stop talking, start making. Are you thinking of words? Start thinking of objects. Help people imagine what it could be like. Third, co-creation is not about successful sessions. It's about investing in long-term relationships by taking people seriously and valuing the process over quick results. So if you agree that as public servants, it's our responsibility to enable people to have a say in changes that affect them, what might that mean for how you do your job? Thank you so much.